Somebody on TikTok said, sometimes my fear is if I love myself, I'll have to leave this bozo. So what do you do instead? How do you actually make somebody want to change? Um, the hard truth is you have to be willing to lose them. Because the real reason that I think we beg so hard for the other person to do the work with us is if you don't, I lose you. We don't realize we've already lost each other. So, what it feels like when you're the one doing all the work, all the emotional labor, all the like, I'm learning the tools, I'm going to the things, I'm learning, I'm freaking doing it. Like, how do you not see how hard I'm working? Why can't you meet me? Why won't you do this? It's like, it's so exhausting. And the exhaustion isn't even because you're doing work, the exhaustion is because you're doing it alone. And it feels like heartbreaking because one part of you is like, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing work. I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to keep expanding. But the other part of you is like, what for? Apparently, you're not going to do it with me. I'm fighting for this relationship. You're not. What is the point? Why am I doing this? Because we're meant to do things together. We are. As humans, we're meant to do things together. Like working together towards a common goal is probably the most euphoric, fulfilling sensation that you can have. And it's so sustaining too. Like you can do the hardest thing for a long ass time if it's a worthy goal that you're doing with a team you love or just a person you love. And that's the real devastating part of somebody not doing the work with you is it feels like you choosing to do the work and them not is just proof of how little they care and proof of how little commitment they have. Somebody not giving you what you need and want is usually not a reflection of how much they love you. It's a reflection of their capacity and of their fear. If you want me to give you love, but I'm drained, what I actually end up feeling is shame that I can't meet you where you need me to. And that's really hard to carry. So I will probably do exactly what shame always does. I will either hide myself and beat myself up, defend myself and be like, well, you're expecting too much. You're not that perfect either. You're not whatever. Or I find someone to blame for the shame, which is probably you because you're the one asking for something that I can't give. I can't face being inadequate. It can't be me. It's got to please be you. I want it to be your expectations and standards are too high because I can't meet them. And if I can't meet them because I'm awful, what do I do with that? That's usually the dynamic that's happening. What's happening in that dynamic too is both of us think the other person needs to change. I, as the person who's not meeting your expectations, think you need to lower your expectations and lighten up and stop being so dramatic and stop being emotional and stop overthinking this. And it creates the exact opposite thing from what we want. It's the exact opposite thing from what we want. It does not inspire change. It doesn't inspire somebody to grow. It doesn't inspire somebody to do the work with you. And we think that we're setting boundaries and we think that we're setting standards and we think that we're asking people to rise to the level that we're at. No, we're not. We're both at the same level because I'm still waiting for you to change so that I can feel better. If I grow and I continue to move forward, what if my growth means I lose you? That's scary. I don't want to grow alone. I don't want to work on this alone because then I might lose you. And we don't realize we've already lost each other. In my view, the only way I can gain you, the only way we can get closer is if I continue to grow and then you get the choice on if you grow or not, which is hard. It's really hard. And it's also the only thing I watch actually make change when I'm working with couples. It's not the time period that one partner is saying, you need to do this and you need to go to therapy and you need to do this work and you need to do that and you need to do that. I have not seen that create change. I've seen it create temporary performance that makes them both feel awful. What I've actually seen create change is saying, I am going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep growing and learning. I want to become this kind of person and I want to be this kind of person in the relationship. I want this kind of relationship. That's what I'm working towards. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm scared that if you don't do it too, we won't stay together. I don't tell you what to do. I don't tell you where to go. I don't tell you anything. I don't give you any directions. I say, this is my vision. This is what I'm headed towards. This is what I'm doing. I'm inviting you in if you want to come, but I know I can't make you. And then they keep going. That's where I see people change. That's where I see somebody choose, because it has to be their choice, to join. And that's The turning point for me and Dan was I was so aggressively coaching and therapizing. I'm like, I was robbing him of his choice to grow up at every turn I could. I was robbing him of the opportunity to become the man that he could be at every freaking conversation that was hard because the conversation will go, something's happening. Ah, something's happening. Okay, what are you feeling? I bet you're feeling this. That makes sense because your mother, because your father, because of this. I was like analyzing him. I was telling him all this thing. I was giving him all the tools. I was like, now you speak back to me like this. I was like, I did not realize that I was controlling him, but I was 100% controlling him in that conversation. I thought I was helping. I thought I was like a gift from God for him because look, I'm telling you what to say and what to do, and I'm telling you about your trauma, and I'm telling you why you work, and why everything happens. Aren't I amazing? And no, he would get tense and he would shut down and he wouldn't talk, and then I would be pissed that he wasn't talking. And then there was this one turning point day where I was like, so what are you feeling? How is it going? And usually when he answers, he would say, which he said that day, I don't know. And usually I would go, no problem. I do. You're feeling this, and here is why, and here's your history, and here's your future, and here's what will happen. And I like, boom. And I stopped myself and I said, you don't know. He's like, yeah. And I went, okay. When you know what you're feeling, will you tell me? Until then, I'm going to go. And he came back and he told me exactly what he was feeling. And this man had never done that before. I was like, huh? He's like, you knew I was mad before I did. And I think I was mad because I was expecting that we were going to go to the gym. And instead you went to the coffee shop. And I felt like that was really confusing because I really wanted to go to the gym. And that really derailed my plans. So I got frustrated and I didn't even know it. And he needed the space to figure it out. And then I started doing that more often when he said, I don't know. Or if he was telling me what he was feeling, but it felt like an attack, I'd go, okay, I want to hear more about what you're feeling. When you're ready, come tell me. When he said, I don't know. And when he was doing attacks, I would be like, okay, I'm feeling really defensive. So I'm going to go take care of myself and come back and see if we can talk about this like we're on the same team. That man became so emotionally intelligent so fast. I had stunted him for years because every time he had a feeling, I was like, fear not. I'll figure it out and I will fix it for you. And I was constantly saving him from emotions he didn't even know he had, which made him feel like a problem to be fixed. It made him feel inadequate and not good enough. And I did that all the time. So on a small scale, we do this for when our partners feel bad. We don't let them just figure it out, grow up, run their own inner worlds. On a bigger scale, I did that too. I wanted him to do the emotional work. I wanted him to show up. I wanted him to do the thing. So I was giving him the books and I was telling him the tools and I was telling him, and I was looking for evidence that he didn't care about me or that he didn't have the capability or that he wasn't willing. And so I found it. And when I stopped and just said what I said earlier, which I call a Vic talk, VIC, vision, invitation, collaboration, vision. I'm determined to have a relationship where we feel super connected and we're on the same team. And I know what I'm feeling, you know what you're feeling, and we can communicate and whatever. Is that something you want? He'd be like, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. That was the invitation. Is that something you want? Then collaboration. How do you think we get there? And most of the time he'd be like, I don't know. I go, okay, well, I think how my part in us getting there is me continuing to work on me and me living in my purpose and me, whatever it was that day that I was like, I think this will help. He thought about it. And that was one of the many reasons I asked him to marry me. The turning point for me was that vision of I am going to be in a relationship that is fulfilling, that makes me love me more, that the person that I'm with really shows up through action, not just words. And instead of waiting for them to become that person or hoping they'll become that person, I give them the opportunity. And when they don't, I communicate, hey, I don't see that that's happening. Not a criticism. I was trying not to blindside people anymore. So more like a, hey, I said this is the kind of relationship I want. This is what I'm doing to get there. I'm not seeing that you're doing that, which is okay. Doesn't make you a bad person. Might mean you're not my person and I'm not your person. And then I would have that conversation. And I allowed myself to grieve. I think a lot of what we do is save ourselves from grief by sticking in a relationship that hurts us and is not with somebody who wants to be in it with us. And we save ourselves from the grief of that. And actually letting it in and letting it through us is so helpful, because what comes right after grief is so often hope. And then you get to have take the steps towards the life you want and stop feeling caged by the need to change somebody into the right person for you in this moment.